Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was an undeniable musical genius, whose nearly 700 compositions continue to be discovered long after his early death. Few composers throughout history can compare to his prolific output and lasting impact. In stark contrast to such historical giants, public recognition for classical composers, particularly American-born ones, was remarkably low in the mid-1970s. Just 2 years after earning his first Best Score Oscar for Jaws, Williams achieved the feat again, delivering not one, but two outstanding scores. While Star Wars ultimately won the Academy Award, Close Encounters of the Third Kind is equally regarded among Williams' finest works. It's a shame that Oscar voters in 1978 were forced to choose between these two masterpieces. Jaws, Star Wars, and Close Encounters of the Third Kind collectively remain among the all-time best-selling movie soundtracks. Just as Mozart pioneered the double concerto with diverse instruments like the flute and harp, Williams did something that even Mozart would be impressed with. He composed a quartet with a celestina, an oboe, and two tubas, ingeniously crafted to symbolize communication between humanity and an alien civilization. Let's explore this further. Close Encounters of the Third Kind is a 1977 science fiction film written and directed by Steven Spielberg. The film follows two main characters whose lives become intertwined after experiencing separate close encounters with unidentified flying objects. Roy Neary, an Indiana electric lineman, witnesses a UFO fly over his truck and is briefly burned by its lights. He becomes obsessed with the encounter, losing his job and straining his family relationships. He is compelled to sculpt and draw a specific mountain-like shape, not knowing what it is. Jillian Geiler, a single mother, has her son abducted by a UFO. She also starts seeing the same strange-like mountain shape in her mind and on television, and she begins a quest to find her son. Meanwhile, a team of international scientists, led by French investigator Claude Lacombe, discovers evidence of extraterrestrial contact, including a squadron of lost World War II planes found intact in the Sonoran Desert. They are also receiving a series of 5-note musical signals and a set of geographical coordinates from outer space. They trace the coordinates to a remote area in Wyoming known as Devil's Tower. The government, attempting to keep the impending contact a secret, broadcast a fake news story about a nerve gas spill in the area, forcing a mass evacuation. However, Roy and Jillian, driven by their obsessions, both make their way to Devil's Tower, along with other experiencers who have also been compelled to go there. The film culminates at the base of Devil's Tower, where the scientists have built a landing site. A massive alien mothership descends, and a series of interactions between humans and the extraterrestrials takes place, using hand signals and a 5-note musical sequence. The aliens return their abductees, including Jillian's son Barry, and a volunteer is selected from a human group to join them on their journey to space. Roy Neary, who has lost everything in his quest for the truth, chooses to go. He boards the mothership, leaving Earth behind, as the film ends with the mothership ascending into the night sky. Close Encounters of the Third Kind was a box office blockbuster, grossing over $300 million by resonating deeply with audiences who embraced its UFO storyline and groundbreaking visual effects. Its success, following the earlier release of Star Wars with its own revolutionary visual effects, cemented 1977 as a hinge point in filmmaking. These two films unequivocally demonstrated that science fiction, as a genre, could be immensely profitable if studios committed significant investment to realistic-looking special effects. Prior to their arrival, quality science fiction was often seen as a one-off venture produced on a limited budget. Franchise attempts, like the original Planet of the Apes series, famously suffered from diminishing returns and budgets, with later installments paling in comparison to their predecessors. While Stanley Kubrick had showcased the genre's true potential 9 years earlier with 2001: A Space Odyssey, it wasn't until 1977 that Hollywood truly grasped this opportunity. Soon, studios were eager to produce their own science fiction epics, almost always accompanied by a sweeping orchestral score. This newfound enthusiasm was evident in 1978 and 1979 with Disney's The Black Hole, Paramount's resurrection of the beloved TV series in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and even James Bond forayed into a science fiction film with Moonraker. Made on a budget of $19 million, Close Encounters of the Third Kind demonstrated that studios were now willing to invest significantly in special effects, and the returns were astounding. Its release was strategically held until November, avoiding direct competition with Star Wars for cinema screens and allowing for Oscar consideration. The film ultimately garnered 9 Academy Award nominations, including Steven Spielberg's first for Best Director. It secured 2 wins, Best Cinematography and Best Sound Editing. While the film's star, Richard Dreyfuss, won the Academy Award that year, it was for Goodbye Girl, not Close Encounters. Similarly, John Williams was nominated for 2 scores, but ultimately won for Star Wars. While When You Wish Upon a Star features prominently in the finale, a popular but inaccurate story often circulates: that Disney Studios was on the brink of bankruptcy in the late 1970s, and John Williams paid them a huge royalty for using the song. But this is false. Disney doesn't even own the rights to the song. Although the House of Mouse did face financial challenges during this period due to disappointing returns from 1970s film offerings like Robin Hood and the Rescuers, the studio was far from bankrupt. Their thriving theme park business provided a steady income, and they could always rely on a successful film re-release for a cash injection. In fact, Disney was financially stable enough to invest in the incredible and expensive special effects showcased in The Black Hole, released at the end of 1979, directly contradicting the narrative of desperation. It might sound incredible that Disney doesn't own the rights to When You Wish Upon a Star, the very song synonymous with their brand. This peculiar arrangement originated before Pinocchio's release, when Disney sold the music publishing rights to Irving Berlin to ensure immediate payment for the writers Lee Harling and Ned Washington, rather than making them wait 2 years for the film's completion for compensation. It would also ensure compensation for the writers should Pinocchio not do well at the box office. But the writers knew they had a hit. Disney retained the rights to use their song in their films and related media, while the precise sum Columbia Pictures paid to license what is now considered Disney's iconic theme remains undisclosed. Unlike a pre-existing theme such as When You Wish Upon a Star, the iconic 5-note motif from Close Encounters has no musical inspiration, no basis in mathematical formula, no preconceived inspiration or inherent musical logic. Instead, it was meticulously chosen by John Williams and Steven Spielberg from a pool of about 350 distinct 5-note sequences. For Spielberg, this specific sequence uniquely conveyed the feeling of an alien ringing the doorbell. The decision to use exactly 5 notes was deliberate. While 4 notes in music is a fragment, 5 notes offered a concise yet discernible melodic phrase, more substantial than a fragment, but purposely not a full, complex melody. If extraterrestrial visitors were to arrive, A critical question immediately arises. How would humanity establish contact? Scientists widely believe that mathematics offers the most promising avenue for interspecies communication. They speculate about transmitting an intricate formula in binary or sharing fundamental patterns like the Fibonacci sequence as a universal starting point. A critical question also arises regarding a potential technological gap in interstellar communication. It is possible that SETI telescopes haven't detected alien radio signals because either intelligent extraterrestrials haven't yet developed such technology, or they have already advanced beyond radio wave communication, much like humanity appears to be on the verge of doing. In addressing this challenge, artificial intelligence could prove invaluable in helping us devise methods to communicate with highly advanced species. Essentially, we may need to develop our own C-3PO to bridge this divide. Beyond technological hurdles, significant challenges in communicating with other species would include cultural nuances and context. Consider the German word Frau, which can translate to either wife or woman in English. Understanding the context is crucial for a correct interpretation. I've personally experienced this confusion, introducing someone as meine Freundin, or female friend, and it was misinterpreted as I was introducing her as my girlfriend. The Darmok episode of Star Trek The Next Generation powerfully illustrates the challenge of content and context in language. While Star Trek's Universal Translator typically functions as a convenient deus ex machina, it proved inadequate in this instance. The Tamarians, or Darmok, communicated entirely through metaphors, referencing their own cultural legends. Although the Universal Translator accurately conveyed the individual words, it failed to grasp the cultural context or the idiomatic meaning behind their speech. Music for communication is plausible as it is fundamentally a mathematical concept. We perceive harmonies because of the precise relationship between the sound wavelengths. For instance, middle C has a wavelength of 1.301 meters, while the C an octave below middle C measures exactly twice that. To our ears, these notes sound like the same note in different registers, one baritone, the other tenor. When wavelengths align, such as C 1.301 meters and E 1.032 meters, they create a pleasing sound we call harmony. Conversely, when wavelengths do not align, such as with C and C sharp, the result is a less pleasing sensation known as dissonance. Given this inherent mathematical structure, it's plausible that music could serve as a universal language for communicating with alien species. We might even devise a code that transmits information through a mathematically patterned progression from harmony to dissonance. The film features Roy Neary, brought to life by Richard Dreyfuss in a perfect performance. 1977 was a banner year for Dreyfuss, seeing the release of two of his most recognizable films. Neary is depicted as an ordinary man with a typical job and a loving family, whose life is upended by an alien encounter that sparks an intense obsession, leading to his eventual selection as humanity's representative. The marriage of Roy Neary and Terry Garzrani in the film appears far from ideal. Their relationship highlights a frequent marital pitfall. Couples often become so consumed with raising their children that they inadvertently neglect their bond as partners. This can result in a lack of shared interest once the children reach adulthood, making the marriage fragile in the face of adversity. In the United States, the highest divorce rates are with couples between the ages of 50 and 60. Like other primates, the human species places a significant responsibility for raising the next generation on the mother. She nurtures the child through gestation and plays a crucial role in nursing the child until the child can process a proper diet. Marriage, by social means, traditionally ties a father to his children. However, the importance of fathers is often downplayed in society. In the film, Roy Neary is initially portrayed as a playful and engaged father in two key scenes, sacrificing a train car to help his son with a math problem and playfully startling his children with foamy toothpaste. Early on, they even discuss family activities. The deep fatherly bond is evident, making Ronnie's concern understandable when her husband, the family's provider and her children's father, appears to lose his mind. The choice of a seemingly devoted father like Roy Neary to leave his family and board an alien spacecraft alone is perplexing. He opts for a life of isolation, effectively abandoning those he ostensibly cares for. This decision compels us to ask, is Neary's departure an act of selfishness or a selfless sacrifice for humanity? Is he truly taking one for the team? The fate of the children Roy Neary abandons is a lingering question. What explanation were they given for their father's sudden departure? And was it the truth? How did Ronnie cope, both emotionally and financially, as a single mother? Did she eventually move on, perhaps introducing a stepfather into their lives? Ultimately, how did Neary's choices impact their children's adulthood, their education, their well-being, and their future? I believe sending a family with the aliens, rather than just one person, would have been more representative of humankind. However, the film's narrative intentionally creates discord between Roy and Ronnie, as well as between Roy and his children. Roy's final on-screen interaction with Ronnie, heard off-screen, strongly implies that she's consulting a lawyer about divorce. Given this established conflict, having Ronnie and the children appear at Devil's Tower at the end would have undermined the story's theme and felt contrived. Alternatively, the writers could have depicted a reconciliation between Roy and Ronnie, leading the family to Devil's Tower together. Their motivation for evading the helicopters while climbing the hill could then have been to protect their children. Another compelling choice would have been to send Gillian and Barry with Roy, forming a new symbolic family unit on the spacecraft. Close Encounters of the Third Kind is a masterpiece of cinema, made unforgettable by its breathtaking score. If you ever have the chance to see a local symphony orchestra perform a film concert, don't miss the opportunity to hear this music live. For a more personal experience, simply put on the soundtrack, close your eyes, and let the music transport you to the breathtaking landscape at the base of Devil's Tower. In the next episode, I'll examine Steven Spielberg's first blockbuster, Jaws. This film is a masterclass in direction, revealing the meticulous attention to detail that foreshadowed Spielberg's rise to one of cinema's greatest directors. By viewing Jaws through this lens, you'll gain a deeper understanding of what makes his films so impactful. Following that, we'll dive into Jurassic Park. Be sure to subscribe so you'll be alerted when new videos are released. Thank you for watching.